War is coming.
An invasion.
If we do not unite to fight this enemy, our world will perish.
Saving the world is not a one-man job.
We fight together or we die together.
You'll have me to protect you.
I need no one to protect me.
Well then.
Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Honest Movie Reviews and Esoteric Smackdown. That's right, I'm doing it again. We did it once and it worked out so well, I figured I'd do it again. Plus, this material absolutely begged for it. Absolutely begged for it. And I am so excited to give these reviews because I love both movies. I gotta just tell you, I loved them both. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about Warcraft first, and then we're going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I'm going to tell you everything I thought they did right. I was extraordinarily happy with both of them. So let's get started. All right, World of Warcraft. I got to tell you right now, my standpoint is I'm a fan of Blizzard. I've been a fan of Blizzard since '96. And I have pretty much gobbled up just about everything that they've produced other than like the most recent stuff that they've done. But I've been a Warcraft fan since Warcraft Orcs and Humans, all the way through to World of Warcraft as a gaming RPG platform. And I've loved all of it. Blizzard is quite literally up to their eyeballs in the esoteric, and the joy of playing games within their systems, and the joy of that company is just how sophisticated they are in the use of their symbolism, how pervasive it is. So if you just start paying attention, you're like, oh, I get it, I get it, I get it. And if you have any knowledge of Kabbalah and are familiar with the Tree of Life and the 7 primary planets of astrology, you'll just really dig it. I always have. In fact, the big question I went going into this movie, because I saw a bunch of other reviews. I wanted to prepare myself, so I just went out and looked at a few of them. Everybody was just hating on this movie and hating on the Turtles, and I could not see why. I went in there, and my reaction actually was so positive. It was amazing. I bet you there are 10 million other World of Warcraft players out there that when they're walking around in Stormhaven or when King Lane is exiting, you're like, oh, I know where that shop is, and I know where that is, and that's where the guild hall is, and this is where I sell my stuff, and there's the auction house over there. I mean, they have 3D modeling of everything, because Blizzard has been establishing the Warcraft lore since the late 90s, and it's just awesome. There were so many cute, awesome, just Easter eggs everywhere, like when they're going through towards Goldenshire, and they cross over the river, and there are Murlocs in the river. Just a really quick boom, there's the Murloc with a little spear, and I was like, yo, it's so cool. There's a Murloc. And of course my family's all like, what are you so excited about? I'm like, it's a Murloc. And they're like, what's a Murloc? So this is definitely going to be one of those kind of movies where if you love the material, right, then you're going to see it everywhere. From this first start fight at the very, very beginning, where the orc, he does this finishing thing, that's straight out of one of the cinematic cutscenes, from the first World of Warcraft game. It really was a pleasure to watch this movie. There were points where they would pull the camera way up high, and suddenly you're playing Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3, depending on, the camera angling. It was largely Warcraft 2-ish, in my opinion, because it all looked like the little guys and they were building stuff and attacking, and it was just so much fun. I had so much fun. The CGI was beautiful to look at. There wasn't too much of it. The orcs were mind-blowing in how awesome they are. And if you've ever read any of the Warcraft novels, I've read the War of the Ancients trilogy, really enjoyed it. And if you ever read it, the description of an orc in print is just like what they look like. They're just these massive, brutish overpowered, super strong, horse throwing. I mean, orcs are just incredible, so of course the way to beat them is you got to be smarter, right?
They're stronger. Be smarter.
So yeah, that's a great clip. And so yeah, you got to be smarter is the point. But anyway, the movie itself executed well. The storyline was nice and tight. They stayed with the lore. I was super pleased. I mean, every building looked right. The costuming was just awesome. The human soldiers just were epically armored. You got to see some high elves. Yes, you got to see high elves because you won't see the moon elves yet because they haven't met them yet, not really. But the high elves are up north, and so you got to see them. The throne room before it got wrecked by Arthas, you get to see that. The movie was just such a pleasure, especially if you're familiar with the world of Warcraft. And I've spent dozens, hundreds of hours over the last couple decades, playing, and so you just really, really love it. I mean, right down to little subtle nuanced details like giving someone a brew, right, which they probably made using their cooking skill, and boom, this will make you feel better. Yeah, it's just so cool. So, all right, so let's talk about the esoteric side of Warcraft here, because they did this. They always do it. They nail it. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And Warcraft, this movie, supplies itself as a really adequate means of describing two planetary forces which we've had to deal with over the last 4,000 years in conflict with each other. So let's take a look at that. Specifically, what I'm talking about is when you look at the Tree of Life, as it descends, okay, from Saturn on the top here over the Pillar of Severity or Pillar of Understanding, whichever you wish to look at, and then over here beginning with Cosmos and Chokmah, and this is the Pillar of Mercy, or and on this side you have Jupiter, right, and on the right you have Mars. And on the right you have red, and on the left you have blue. And Mars and Jupiter represent both masculine aspected planets, which have their specific role, and as you look at them, they also position themselves as the two eyes of Horus, right? One blue and one red. The left eye is blue, the right eye is red. And how do I know that they know about this? How can I absolutely slam dunk this as, yes, when you surreptitiously want to teach this material and talk about the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Re, when you want to surreptitiously talk about the Kabbalah and talk about Jupiter and Mars's influence, how can I absolutely guarantee, well, I've given you the criteria, blue on the left, red on the right, take a look at this. That's directly from their promotional material. And what do we got? Blue on the left, red on the right, humans on the left, orcs on the right. What does that work out to? Well, we see this all the time. This is Star Wars, Empire versus the Rebellion, right? And if you want to just bring it all the way down and cascade it down, under those two principles that they're teaching you in this movie, under Mars, which is on the right, the rule under Mars are wars to unite, okay? Wars under Jupiter, which of course we've been experiencing since the start of our country, are always wars to liberate. And so those who are clad in the blue, like our Revolutionary War soldiers that we see in artwork all the time, as opposed to the British soldiers that were wearing red. I mean, literally, we did this in our own history, okay? And all of these guys had Masonic background. I mean, it's crazy. Both sides were Masons. They both were trained under the Freemason stuff in London and in Scotland. So it's anyway, that's a whole different topic, but it's like looking at two sides fighting about the same thing. On the left is to liberate, and on the right is to unite. And so Mars is always pulling together to unite, and Jupiter is always getting in there because freedom is important to Jupiter. Liberty is important to Jupiter. That's a big underpinning thing. So if you want to see other movies that have this, The Horde, then in a Star Wars analogy, you have the Empire versus the Republic, which is the Alliance. If you want to look at Star Trek, then what you have is the Klingon Empire versus the Federation. Okay? And in fact, they always have the same colors. The Klingons, everything is cast in red in the Klingon Empire. The ships are cast in red. Everything is red. They drink blood wine. It's red, 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 red on the Klingon side. And the amazing thing is that there's a huge transitive property that takes place between Klingons and Orcs. And it's not because Warcraft is copying Roddenberry. It's because this concept is directly being drawn from Kabbalah. It's directly being drawn from astrotheological concepts. And the reason for this, the reason why this keeps happening, you guys, is to teach you how to know and feel your way through these concepts. Really, if you're trying to learn from them, they're putting a face on the planet Mars. When you see Worf and you think, that's Mars, now you've got a face to look at. The noble warrior poet, right? Mars is about order and honor, and this is a huge big deal. The huge, huge, huge big deal with the Orcs too. In fact, a whole plot point later in the movie hinges on honor and whether or not you will honor your traditions. Mars, and this is because Mars descends from Saturn, and so everything it's got a law, it has a place, and this preserves us as a people. This regulation, this tradition, that's Mars. That's his face. And we're going to see another face of Mars when we talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because again we have Leonardo and Raphael, red and blue, cascading down with opposing viewpoints. And we'll get to that in just a second. But this is a very important point to recognize, is that there's this balance going on between order and chaos. And believe it or not, the blue side is a little bit more in line with chaos because they want liberty, and so there has to be a willingness to tolerate people's want to do whatever, so that you don't oppress them. And Jupiter's always trying to free you from oppression, and Mars is trying to free you from chaos by stamping it out, by holding it with an iron fist. So when you look at Jupiter then, Jupiter's more interested in what's right. Jupiter talks about morality. Mars does not talk about morality. Mars will say their traditions are about morality, but their rules of moral conduct are legislated. In other words, that they have laws of moral conduct. And you do these things. So if you get in a fight with a person and that guy wins, that's a thing, and you can't violate that. That exceeds morality, right? Jupiter is more concerned with what's right, not who's right. And so Jupiter's like, but your honor code makes you honor bound, which means you are no longer free to execute any will to choose. You're literally, that's why they say honor bound. I am honor bound to execute this whatever. And that means I have chosen to abdicate my free will. I have literally tossed that into the bucket and said, I am going to be a robot right now and follow this tradition. And that literally is what Mars expects. Mars says you will abide by the rules. And Jupiter's like, but no, because these rules can change and circumstances change. And what if it was this way? And what if it wasn't that way? And Jupiter's always thinking like that because Jupiter's dealing with all these extra new inputs. All right? So there you go. So there's a big nugget right there in World of Warcraft. And it was such a good movie. It was so much fun. I really had a great time. And I know you will too, especially if you've played the game. Now, the big questions then, wrapping up World of Warcraft review here. My big question walking into this movie was, would this get me so excited about it again that I would renew my subscription, because I haven't played for like a year. And it largely because I was a little bit disappointed with the whole Warlords of Draenor thing. Total different thing. Not about the game or the world itself. It was more a function of that game and the fact that you have to just totally bust your balls to get back on your flying mounts, and that frustrated me. But with regard to the movie, the question was, did this movie get me excited did this movie get me excited enough to want to renew my subscription? Yeah, absolutely. I want to get back in there. I want to feel it. I want to drink some magic potions and use. I have the most awesome character. I have my main character is an alliance character. It's a worgen. He's a werewolf, and he's an alchemist. And his name is Chaos, Professor Chaos. That's right. He is Professor Chaos. It's an homage to South Park. I went out and he's a professor of archaeology. I mean, I love this game, it's so detailed. So anyway, back to the movie. So if you love Warcraft, you're going to love this movie. You're just going to love it. You really are. I just really enjoyed it. Keep in mind, there's the plot point at the end of the movie, and it might frustrate some of us who are very Luciferian or under Jupiter in our thinking, which is just, I don't get it. And as long as you remember that the person who did what they did it because they're tied under a Marsian rule of honor and everything else, that explains everything. It literally explains everything, because everyone there suddenly is like, oh yeah, I see, yes, of course, this person did a good thing for us. And so if you keep that in mind, it will fix all of that, because it does frustrate people. I'm sure that's the big plot point that frustrates people. I know I'm ambiguous, but I said no spoilers, so when you go see the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, I see, yeah, Mars, that totally makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
We got the besties in the house right here. Mikey.
Ugh. My bad.
Yeah, baby! This is our movie trailer now.
Oh boy.
Turtles are out. Rhino and Warthog are in. It's on, baby!
I don't know that guy, but I hate that guy.
I like it! We gotta keep our eyes out for intruders.
Well, what do intruders look like?
Anybody that's not a big pig or a big rhino.
All right, here is another movie that I absolutely, totally, completely loved, and I am baffled that people did not like this movie. First of all, I like the way the turtles look. I just do. I don't think they're ugly or scary. They look like what I would visualize. Now, you have to keep in mind my perspective is different. I've loved the Turtles since Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird came out with them in black and white pulp way back in the 80s. And I followed them from that point. And then my kids, when my son was growing up, we watched the cartoon and read more of the comics, and it's just kind of, they've been a thread through my life longer than Warcraft, actually. And I have loved the Turtles. I just absolutely have. In fact, back in the 80s, Palladium Books put out a series of role-playing games, TMNT role-playing games. I had them all back then when I was in college. And it was awesome to play a mutated animal being. So, from that standpoint, and the standpoint that I'm really familiar with Bebop and Rocksteady, and oh my gosh, those guys were awesome funny.
Turtles! Dude, seriously?
Yep, that's my bad. I got a little carried away.
This movie was a success because it did not take itself too seriously. In fact, that's one of the things that you're going to have to prepare yourself for later on when you watch sequels of Warcraft. Because that movie itself does not take itself. The game is an homage to everything pop culture. So you're going to see pop culture references within future movies, I'm sure. And in Turtles, it's the same way. They don't take themselves too seriously, and they have a lot of fun with it. You get to see Krang and the TCRI aliens. You get Shredder back. But my favorite part was Bebop and Rocksteady, a really, really, really faithful adaptation from the comic books and the cartoons. They were just super fun. Every time they were on screen, it was just fun. I just knew I was going to have some fun, and the Turtles interaction was fantastic. And the best part was that they didn't waste any time or lose any opportunities to teach if you were paying attention. Because every time the turtles are interacting, you're getting a lesson in planetary dynamics. You're getting a lesson in pretty much every standardized personality test that's out there, which breaks it into a box with 4 separate characteristics. You're getting the characterization of the 4 humors. You're basically you're getting a characterization of the things that make us people. And the neat thing about turtles is everybody will find at least one turtle that they really identify with, because that's an expression of you. You are one of the turtles, and maybe two, but typically most people will be like, yeah, I really dig Raphael. I just love him. Or I really like Leonardo. He's so honorable, or so stand up. And I really like Michelangelo. He's so kick back, or Donatello because he's so smart. And they make a point a couple times, actually 2 times in the movie, they give you a break. And one is when they're rolling credits, and then the other is later when you meet Casey Jones, and then Michelangelo kind of takes a break, and he's like, with fun music in the background. It's so funny, he's introducing everyone, right? And it's just really fun. So the movie's definitely something you can take your kids to, because the jokes are cute. And Megan Fox does a great job as April O'Neil, the guy from Green Arrow. It's nice to see him smile. Oh my gosh. If you ever watch Arrow on the CW, he is constantly just, I'm so dour, I'm so sad, I'm so, and here he's got a beautiful smile. So that was really nice to see the actor have some range. Overall, the movie, its pacing was excellent. They didn't waste any time in dragging it out with exposition. They just kind of assumed that you were going to have a good time. And it was really clear that the actors were having a good time. I like pro wrestling, so it was really fun to see Sheamus, who's a pro wrestler, just have fun. He really, seriously, he looked like he was having a great time. And it was just fun to see him look like he was having a great time. All right, so let's hit the Esoteric Smackdown side of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and see what we can learn from the Turtles and from Bebop and Rocksteady and everybody else. Ready? All right, let's go. So, let's take a look at the Turtles. First off, we already broke down for you that the red and the blue are clearly Jupiter and Mars standing off in opposition to each other. And this is exactly what you get to see in this movie. It's always going to be a plot point with every Turtles movie, every time, because it's one of those driving points. This is because, in truth, we are all 4 turtles. Okay, all of us. We have all 4 points of, just some turtles are bigger in us than others. But overall, we are in fact all 4. We have that warrior instinct, and we have that capacity to strategize. And the instinct is driven from Mars. Mars feels his way through stuff. He feels, and there's this great scene where they're in the garbage truck, and you've probably seen the trailer, and they're following after a police caravan trying to protect them from getting stopped, and it's Shredder inside that truck. And so this is the Foot trying to free him. And Raphael is the only one in the truck who's just kind of pacing back and forth in the garbage truck behind them, going, "You're wasting my potential." And this is Mars talking. When you learn, you guys, the reason I'm doing this is so that you can put a face to these astrological planets, so that you can see them and see what they do to you, because it's a reflection of yourself when you're able to see that face in them. Okay? So when you watch a movie like TMNT and you're watching the way these planetary bodies conduct themselves, what they're doing, you get to, and how that makes you feel inside. Watch how it makes you feel. Try to pull yourself out of the movie just momentarily if you get excited or scared or angry or frustrated or whatever emotion the movie's evoking from you, and then ask yourself, what made me feel that way? What am I seeing that got that to that point and got me excited or happy or whatever, or moved me? And learn that, feel that, because this is the art of alchemy. The language and the science can be very dry because it's the foundation that lets you express. But the art is how you express it, and that can only be felt. I just don't understand why people hated on it so much, because I really had a great time. It was just endless. It was like eat. Oh my goodness, it was just great. I was just feasting on all the stuff they were doing right. So Michelangelo, anyway, at one point in the movie, he literally says, instinct, Raphael, strategy, Leonardo, all the brains, Donatello, and then he points himself out as the triple threat, right? Because he's got the personality and he's super awesome. And I can't remember what he said, but yeah, which is something Mercury would do, because he's like, and I'm just so epic. You know? So anyway, overall, this movie was just fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely go see this movie again, and I would see Warcraft again. I saw Warcraft at full price. I saw this one as a matinee. I didn't see either movie. I like to go to digital just because, and it didn't seem like there was any reason to see either of these in 3D, although they did take advantage of it apparently with the turtles. You could see they probably did with some scenes. But overall, again, oh, and then Bebop and Rocksteady. Bebop and Rocksteady. Cannot go without talking about Bebop and Rocksteady. These two were great. And Bebop and Rocksteady represent the two pillars again. Clearly the two pillars. When you begin, Bebop is an African-American male who has a penchant for purple, Saturnian colors, right? And he wears these purple glasses, which basically you could hardly see out of, right? They're these plastic things. And then Rocksteady is a guy from Scotland, you know, the wrestler Sheamus, and he's got red hair and he's super pale. And so now you've got the two pillars, and then when they transform, again, they stick with the two pillars again. So Bebop is a boar, which actually a warthog. Rocksteady becomes a rhinoceros. Now you might want to say, what does the rhinoceros have to do with the sun? Well, the link is in the horn of the rhinoceros, the little horn of the rhinoceros. Because that's actually a solar reference to Lucifer, which is the sun as it looks when it's eclipsed. So the coronal points of the sun, you know, it forms it makes an eyeball shape, just like you see in the Eye of Re. And if you just turn that up on its side, it looks like a small horn, like you just stick it on top. Which is why Cancer, when the sun is the high, you know, at its peak in the middle of summer in Cancer, the other symbol for Cancer other than the crab is the unicorn. And it's related exactly to the same thing. And then the other thing about the sun is that it makes you horny. That's right, the sun liberates the desire to have sex. That's one of the esoteric implications of understanding what the sun is all about, and why Saturnianism, they say no sex, no sex, no sex. Catholic Church, every other religion, it's no sex, and sex only when you're supposed to have kids. That's all Saturn talking right there, right? Which reveals something about Saturn as well, which is that maybe in a previous state, like every other animal life form on the planet, we were cycled, you know, we were driven by certain cycles, and now those cycles are gone, they're over. And it's just the sun that drives us, and we like to have sex. So the sun makes you horny. And that's actually one of those things. So this movie was great. Both movies were fun. I really had a good time. I think you will too, especially if you love these stories, if you love these intellectual properties, because they're both very faithful retellings, in my opinion. I had a great time. You will too. Thank you for joining me for another Honest Movie Reviews and Esoteric Smackdown. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and I'll be talking to you soon. See you at the movies.